Hello and welcome to Love Fools with me, your host, Terry Lee Shield, where we are hopelessly devoted to exploring and embodying the universal language of love. Love Fools is brought to you by Love School, where we explore loving self, others, and everything. Join us there for deeper exploration at www.loveschool.uk. Now for today's episode. Hello and welcome to this Love Fools episode. I am really excited to be able to welcome Rebekah Kiger to the episode today. Rebekah is an expert in finances and moving from a state of poverty, from a situation where she was born into really difficult circumstances, transitioned into a really successful corporate job and was able to retire at age 32. And now she runs a business on her own terms, has a much healthier relationship with money and finances, and teaches other people how to thrive in that area. So we're going to have a chat today because Rebekah has identified a link between our relationship to money, and we're going to deep dive in and explore how that can be really similar to our relationship to ourselves, our relationships to others, and our relationship to life, because money is just another form of energy. So if we have a certain style in relationships, certain habits, certain ways of showing up in connections, we're going to dive in, have a chat, and explore about how that might be mirroring in our financial life. And then also tap into her expertise of how we can then use these insights we can find out about ourselves and our relationships to shift and improve our money situation, but then also have that ripple effect of how it could improve our relationship to ourselves, our relationships to others, and our relationship and connection to life. So I am super excited for this chat and enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Love Fools. I am very excited. We've got Rebekah Kiger here, who we're going to have a good old deep dive and chat around her expertise, which is money. Hello, Rebekah.
Hi, Terry.
Hello.
How are you? So
Yes,
excited to
very
be
good.
here.
Thank you. Yes. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself to start with before we dive
Sure.
into the...
Yeah, of course. Of course. So I'm a trauma-informed money mindset coach, and I have been helping people reach their financial goals for almost 2 decades now. So I have a lot of experience in this. And I grew up below the poverty line. I became a teen mom. And I was on government assistance myself in my early adulthood. So I know what it's like to have nothing or close to nothing. I mean, I've always had a roof over my head, so I've never actually been homeless, thankfully. But um, I know what it's like to have very, very little, and I know what it's like to have a lot. And I would rather be on this side and helping other women who are living an incredible life and want to make impact in the world and want to break generational cycles or really just, become the best versions of themselves, heal their relationship with money so that they can make the kind of money that they desire and then also hold on to it and not lose it.
Wow, yeah. There's so much, even when you say that, I'm like, oh, I want to talk about this, I want to talk about that. When we first met, we had a little bit of a chat and something that you said just really resonated. And I thought this is just going to be such a good subject to dive into. And we were talking about how money is energy, and you were talking about money being a relationship. So I would love to just dive into some of your insights, first of all, about how our relationship with money maybe is like a reflection, or have you seen a connection with our relationship to ourselves or our relationships with others? What's going on there when we consider relationships and money?
Yeah, I love the question. So I just view, our relationship with money like a relationship with anyone else in your life. And when we're growing up, especially if you've grown up in, some more traumatic type of environments or you've experienced trauma, some of us grew up with an insecure attachment style. or we're programmed and conditioned into that. And so if that is the case, then we don't have secure relationships in our lives. That's okay. We can learn how to do that. But one of the ways that actually shows up is our relationship with money. So I think about it like this. If money is a relationship and every single time you go to open your bank account and you look at the money that you have, you're feeling anxious or you're feeling like anytime money leaves your bank account, you're scared that it's not going to come back. Or, anytime you're up against an edge and you receive a large, lump sum of money, or you get some money in your pocket and then, spend it as soon as possible. These are all symptoms of a potential insecure relationship with money. And if I equate it to my husband, let's say, because I'm married, going on 9 years we've been together now. And if every time my husband came home from work, I was attached to his hip and like could not let him go. And I was so scared that he was going to leave my sight. Or every time he went to go leave, I was like, "Are you coming back? When are you coming back? And what time are you coming back? Are you sure you're coming back?" And, I was showing up in that same kind of energy. Or the opposite of that could be some people have an avoidant style around this where they just don't ever want to look at their money. And they say, well, it's kind of like an out of sight, out of mind type of thing. If I were doing that with my husband, and I never wanted to go on date night with him, and I never wanted to spend any time with him unless he was doing good things for me, unless our relationship was perfect, it wouldn't be that great of a relationship, right? And so I think a lot of people show up in these ways around money expecting that things are going to change. But when we show up in these ways, a lot of times it just perpetuates those cycles. And what it's actually doing from a biological perspective is it's showing our nervous system that handling our money, dealing with money, having a relationship with money, having a lot of money, being around money is actually a threat, and we shouldn't be doing it. And so this is all happening on a very unconscious level. But if we can start to heal this relationship, then money, in my opinion, because money is energy like everything else, money's going to want to stick around more, right? My husband is going to want to stick around if I nourish that relationship versus showing up in those insecure ways. So I hope that answers your question.
Wow, yeah, no, it's like all this stuff. So I in the attachment style thing, I'm like that fearful. So I was both like avoidant and anxious.
Hmm.
You know,
Same,
oh, you're like,
same.
don't leave me. But actually, no, now here, I'm not sure if
Go
I should
away, give me my
be. Look
space.
at you,
Yeah.
yeah. So just when you're saying the stuff and the behaviors, I'm like, oh God, this is like really resonating a lot. And what's really interesting is how okay, so what it's triggering a few things in my mind.
That's okay.
Can people then like start to heal a relationship with money without money then? Because I do think sometimes there's like obviously what Love School does is there's a lot of things that we can look at in ourselves internally and start to understand maybe it's our own patterns and styles and things. But I suppose until you get into a relationship, you don't actually know then how you're going to respond to it. Do you think this is something that people can do without money? Do we have to do the work first, or do we just literally work with what comes? And what's your insight on that?
Yeah, so great question. This is all about perspective. I'm going to start with that first because if you're listening to this podcast, you're here, you have a computer, you have a phone, you have a way to listen to this podcast, you have money, okay? Now, how much? That I don't know, right? We all have a different amount of money. But even in the question, sometimes, a lot of people say, oh, I don't have the money I want right now. I don't have any money right now. And so why would I work on this or why would I do that? And I know that's not what you're asking, but just for the listener, like there you have something, right? So you have had experiences with money, you've had money in the past. Maybe you haven't made all the best decisions around it, or maybe it's been fleeting, but you have something, right? Even if you have debt, you've got something. We all do, or else we wouldn't be here, right? We don't live in a third world country here. Well, I'm based out of the US, but even still, there are people who don't like literally don't have anything. So with that caveat, I think it's important to realize, so I got married again 7 years ago. We've been together 9 years, and I can tell you 100% that I would have loved the ability or the wherewithal or to have the foresight to work on myself before I got into a relationship. Is it the best time to work on healing when you're in a relationship? Or is it the best time to work on it when you're by yourself? I don't know. There's really no good way to answer that question. It's work on it whenever it's relevant for you. Like for me, I wasn't faced with all of the healing and the growth until I met my husband. I wasn't faced with all of those triggers and all of those things that I had been avoiding from my childhood. So um, this is something that if you haven't started this journey in the past, you can start it whenever and with however much you have, because what what happens when you don't have any money, or that's the perception, is that you don't have any money, or you have little money, or you're not happy with the money that you have right now, let's say, then what that typically tells me is that there is something happening unconsciously, because I would have to imagine that there is a part of you that really wants more money. If there is a part of you that really wants more money, but you don't have it, that tells me that there is an internal dichotomy. There is a duality happening here. There literally is an energetic part of you that doesn't want it. And a lot of times that is tied in with the nervous system. And the way that the nervous system works, in my studies throughout the years, is realizing that the primary job of the nervous system is to keep you safe and to keep you alive. So if it deems money as any kind of threat based on your childhood, so like let's say you grew up like me where money was not abundant. There were a lot of fights and there was a lot of chaos around money. There was a lot of crying about money. There was a lot of stressing about money. What happened for me as a child is my nervous system created this baseline for me that money is actually not a safe thing. Okay. So when we get into adulthood, anything that is unfamiliar to the nervous system is going to be deemed as unsafe, and anything that's familiar to the nervous system is going to be deemed as safe. This dates back to our tribal times, and there's a lot of scientific reasons behind all of this. So if you don't have the kind of money that you desire, but you consciously want it, that tells me that there is some sort of unconscious aspect of you that is keeping you at this specific place. And so I would absolutely 1000% to answer your question, consider starting to work on your relationship with money now, because if you don't, then who's to say that's ever going to change?
Yeah,
Does that make
definitely.
sense? How
Yeah,
would you get through it? Like yeah, it's like a cycle. Like I don't know how you bring more money in without addressing your money blocks.
yeah. And then it's like, so I always think like healing, it's like a spiral, but it's like up and down and stuff and everything as well, isn't it? So it's like you might have to do something, go around to bring the money in, and then that's going to trigger.
It is, yeah.
That's going to trigger your stuff.
Yep.
Just like in a relationship, like when you're meeting someone, you could do like all this internal work if you want, but until you start like dating and meet someone that's gonna, like say, oh, you get
Yeah.
married, it's suddenly going to show you, I have this to deal with, and then you can kind of respond.
100%. Yeah. So I'm a master practitioner of something called neurolinguistic programming. I'm not sure if everyone
Right.
knows exactly what that is, but NLP. And one of the things to your point is my mentor would always say, and he is a teacher of NLP and also a energy healer of um, like 40 some years. He's an incredible individual. But he said, if you want to figure out if you have baggage, that's what he calls it, like all of these energetic parts of us, right? If you want to figure out if you have baggage, there's really three very fast ways to find out. One is to get into a relationship, two is to have a child, or three is to start a business. You can do any, if you want to find out if you still have shit to work on, excuse my language,
No,
do any one of those three things and you'll find out very easily. Or do all of them at once and then you can do
yeah,
all of
exactly.
those
Or
and
just
maybe
dive in and go, "Ah."
I don't recommend that, by the way.
No,
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 please don't do that. Because you may just not know what's, yeah, that could trigger the dark night of the soul for real.
it certainly could. Yes. Let
Likely will.
me settle down. My little menagerie in the background all start to kick off.
It's okay.
I did that out. Real. So we talked a little bit about like the attachment styles. If people start to recognize that they have like anxiety or they're avoiding their money and stuff, how do they deal with that? Like, I'm anxious around money. I see that, but what can someone actually do to change that circumstance?
Yeah, so I actually have this is what I teach. I have a
Like, oh,
method. I was gonna say
actually,
I have a method that I can walk through to really help someone if they are starting to see like, okay, I think that I may have some blocks around this. I can share this process if you'd like. It'll just take a couple minutes.
it's up to, if it depends. It's up to you if you're happy to share it. I'm really grateful for some of the stuff that you've offered for people for the free link.
Yeah.
So that would be great if you're happy to share about around that. It would just be, I'm sure people will be really curious. I'm like the curious type,
Yeah,
but just share what you're
of course.
comfortable with.
Okay. So let's start with so this is a method that I downloaded in a meditation from the universe probably 3 or 4 years ago or so. And I was really sitting with the question of how did I do this? Because statistically speaking, I should not be where I am today. Like statistically speaking, so my mom was a single mom with 7 kids. We should be like homeless, living in, a government housing. I mean, one of us should be dead, one of us should be on drugs, one of us should be homeless. Statistically speaking, from the moment that I was born, things were not perception why. Okay, this is my perception in the story, but the odds were not in my favor. And yet here I am, right? So I also became a teen mom, and then I went on to retire from my corporate job, my high-paying corporate job at the age of 32. I made my first six figures in my early 20s. I saved my first six figures in my late 20s, all while being a single mom. So none of those things, statistically speaking, should have happened. So when I was sitting with this question and this meditation, I said, what did I do? Because at this point, I was already helping other people to hit like incredibly big revenue numbers in their lives and in their businesses as well. And I was just sharing from a place of I wasn't even a coach then. I was just helping people because I like to help people and I want to share the things. And so I said, universe, if I could put this into like a process or what did I actually do here? And it all came to me like literally like the floodgates opened of heaven and it was like boom, here it is. So this process is called the align method. And the very first step that I took that I would recommend you taking is we're going to spell out the word align is cultivating awareness to what it is that you are doing in your life right now that is perpetuating your financial situation. Those are things like your financial triggers, your nervous system responses, your limiting beliefs, the way that you talk to yourself, even the question around and I know this was just a question, right? But even like looking at the thoughts, like, okay, so what if someone doesn't have any money right now? That question is if someone's asking themselves that, like, what if I don't have any money? That is already presupposing that this is your reality and you don't have any money. And the universe has a very beautiful way of just saying yes to whatever it is that you believe about yourself. So if you're going to keep saying things like, I don't have any money, I'm not good with money, I don't really think I deserve that kind of money, I'm not that kind of person, I don't launch offers like that, I don't work with people like this, blah, blah. You hear all those stories. Somewhere along the lines, you decided those things. And that sounds okay. So, I have a whole training that you guys have access to where you can dive into all of this. But realistically speaking, when you came into this world, you were not saying those things from the moment that you were born. God or the universe or whoever did not stamp you on your forehead and say, this one's not going to be good with money. This one's not going to be worthy or not able to make more than, $5,000 a month. Like that's not a thing. So somewhere along the line during your programming years, you picked up on whatever it is that you're believing to be true about yourself and your capabilities to make money. So the very, very first step in the Align method and the process that I teach is to cultivate awareness to the ways that you are perpetuating this, maybe unknowingly. And again, this is about removing shame here. This is not to blame yourself. A lot of people will go into blame their parents, blame themselves for, not being born into the right circumstances or not being taught these things. But that doesn't work. I did that for many years. I can promise you it doesn't work. Okay, let's just let go of the shame, let go of the fact that we wish we were born. I can't tell you how many times I said, why the hell did my parents bring me into this setting? I can't tell you how many times I wanted to blame and scream and yell and cry, but guess what? It didn't get me anywhere. So I've got to take accountability and ownership and know that it wasn't my fault what happened to me as a child, but it is my responsibility as an adult to fix it for my daughter who is now 19 years old. So, starting with awareness is going to be super crucial. And then once you have awareness to the blocks, and of course, in the training, if you want to share this with your listeners, they can dive in. I do dive into all of those things and helping them cultivate awareness to what those blocks are, because there's many different layers to that. That's when you can start to move into pillar number two, which is to let it go. So, if we're spelling out the word align, L is let those blocks go. And some really easy ways to let go of, let's say, a limiting belief is simply to question the validity of the belief, meaning, who told you,
Yeah.
right? Like
Who
when
says
or
that?
when did you decide like I'm not good with money? Why? Because one time you made a mistake that you're blaming and shaming yourself for still like 10 years later, you know? When did you decide that? And starting to question that validity of the belief. Whose voice is this? Like, is this my voice saying this, or was this something I picked up from, childhood? When did I decide this? When's the first time that I thought this? Again, kind of making it silly, like I said, with the stamp on the forehead. I think it's a really funny visual to think, like, no, that never happened. Like, God didn't stamp me on the forehead and say, I'm going to be bad with money. That's silly. So, where did it come from? Sometimes we take these beliefs about ourselves that we've been saying because we've been saying them for so long, we take them as truth. And
Yeah.
I always say, like, if you want to know, it's not the limiting beliefs that you know are limiting beliefs that are keeping you stuck. It's the ones that you believe are true about yourself. And that sometimes is what you need like a mentor or someone who can help you see those blocks
Yeah, because then
because
you know
sometimes we can't see them ourselves. They're
they're there.
blind spots.
They've been blocked away.
Yeah.
Shoved,
Yeah,
shoved as
that's why they're
far
called
away as
blind spots.
possible.
It's just like when you're driving a car, you can't see through the car through the blind spot, like to see if anybody's next to you. You have to understand that there's a blind spot there, and somebody in the back seat might be able to say, "No, no, no, you're good. You can move over." But it's going to take someone else with a different perspective and seeing it from a different angle to be able to help you even notice that it's there. And there's no shame around any of this. It's just, again, being in the right container where somebody can help you with that. So once you have started to release these things, and there's many different ways, as I mentioned, that you can do release work, that's where you start to have this almost like blank canvas where now you can see things clearly and you can start to see things through the lens of possibility. Remember when you were a kid and you were like, I want to be an astronaut or I want to be this or I want to like you had no limits as to what you believed you could do. And then somewhere along the way, you were programmed and told you couldn't and whatever, and life beat you down. And then eventually, we find ourselves working at the bank, making minimum wage or whatever. You know what I mean? Like I had all these ideas of what I wanted to be when I was a kid. I wanted to be an astronaut, actually. So what happens when you do this release work properly is that you almost end up with that childlike innocence again, where you're like, oh my gosh, like all of this baggage is gone, and now I can see the world for the possibility that it actually is. So that leads us into pillar number three, which is identifying where you want to go instead. So now that you're free from all of these stories and all this baggage and these nervous system responses and these protective patterns, this is where you get to say, what would I want to do? Like if money weren't an issue, if like
Just
I
the
didn't
fun
have
bit.
to yeah, it's like, shameless plug, but like living this soul powered life. That's the name of my podcast. It's like soul powered. So I really look at it like, okay, like if my soul were actually guiding the way, what would I really want to be doing with my life? How would I really want to be spending my time? What kind of goals would I be setting if I knew that anything were possible? So once we kind of create this design of like, here's what I would love, even though I have no freaking clue how I'm going to make that happen yet, that's okay. Um, that's when you can move into step number four, which is G, and that stands for getting into inspired action. So this is all about now not being on the hamster wheel of life, like I used to be in the corporate world, meaning I'm just moving to move, right? Like I'm going a million miles an hour and I'm burned out and I'm crying on my way home from work every day. To, okay, well, let's make this connection with our intuition. Now that we are really casting this vision and setting these goals from a soul level, let's start to tap into that energy and that power. I call it like your inner GPS. Let's tap into this GPS system to see, where would you like me to go? How would you like me to start moving towards this? And a lot of times it's not hustle. It's not grind. It's not based on society standards. It's based
Go and
on our
sleep for the weekend, and
intuition.
you're like, what? No, I need to do something. I need to do this. Oh
Right. It's
no.
like,
And then
no, take a vacation, take
yeah.
some time off,
You're
clear
like,
your
really?
mind,
Really?
meditate. Right. Like it's not going to come from that societal hustle, and that I think is hard for people to wrap their head around. Oh, we got a little visitor. That's okay. So, getting into the inspired action is going to be really important for us to actually move towards the goal that we're setting, because this is a different paradigm than what society has programmed us to believe. Society has told us that we need to go down the same path, we need to fit in, we need to hide ourselves, we need to mask ourselves, and we need to all do the exact same thing. But living a soul powered life is actually kind of like, have you ever seen the vision of like fish that they're all going this way, and then there's that one fish that's kind of like going against the grain? That's what it feels like to live a soul powered life. So sometimes it's actually not very easy, especially in the beginning. You know, people will doubt you, people will tell you that it's not possible, just get a real job. What's wrong with you? What are you thinking? What are you doing? And I'm not even saying that you have to like start a business or anything to be living a soul powered life. You definitely can be working a job, but a lot of people who are not, that don't understand this, are going to be saying things like, why would you want to give up such a stable career? Why would you want to give up this? Why would you want to give up that? You know, and they'll try to like kind of project onto you, not because they hate you, because they love you. Like they don't see that it's possible. And so that's kind of why really it's important, especially as you're trying to heal your relationship with money and move into this soul powered life. It is important to be around people that are going to be supportive of that. And that know how to guide you through it. But the last step is the final and most important. So once you've got into inspired action and you start moving towards the direction that you want to go, that's when you start to see the results. You start to see the money flowing in, you start to see the followers or the whatever it is you're trying to manifest, right? Because it's action that's going to create all of those things. But then we move on to N, which is pillar number 5. It stands for normalizing and stabilizing
Mm.
that level of success before you try to move on to the next. And this is really where nervous system regulation comes in, because if you don't regulate yourself, and you don't allow your nervous system to expand its capacity to receive and hold on to good things and make money familiar to the nervous system, that's when it can create that self-sabotage. And this happens a lot with lottery winners. It happened to my dad. My dad hit the lottery and was
Wow.
became a statistic. 3 years later, he's dead broke, just like actually most people are in like a worse off position several years after they hit the lottery. So I've seen this a lot with like large inheritances or quick success in business, lottery winnings, things like that, where when people come into a lot of money that threatens their identity or their paradigm that they've created as a child, not on purpose, but it is what it is, and the nervous system feels unfamiliar, it's going to think it's unsafe, and literally it won't be able to get rid of the money fast enough. So pillar number 5 is like super, super important. We've got to normalize, we've got to regulate our nervous system. But really, to answer in a long form with a process, this is a really good way to get started to see where you might have blocks. And then also there's tools in there, of course, to start releasing them as well.
Yeah, I just love like like you say, as we're having the chat, the similarities is so apparent. Like if you think money is an energy, or our health is an energy, our vitality is an energy, our relationships are an energy, all this stuff, it's the same process. It might be different things you have to deal with. It might be like different changes you have to make, or whatever it is to get back into your alignment. But it just seems like more kind of a chat and connect with people. There's just like this truth that's coming out of this is just the way it has to be done, almost like, as in, one thing that I noticed recently, because I mean that's what this channel is about. Mine was like a recovery journey, and then I realized how much, it was affected in my environments, in my relationships. And the money thing was something I didn't pay that much attention to. Like I say, I had this kind of fearful avoidant thing. So I've just become
Yeah.
conscious of it like over the past few years, and I'm kind of at that point now where I feel like I'm quite neutral in it. So like I look at my money, like I'm at that kind of, as you said, kind of that neutral point. But what I noticed, like, so I noticed this in my relationships, right? I've now found a state of peace and calm for my health and things that when calming my nervous system, I'm just learning to hold on to, we'll call it that, to find peace, to find calm, so to not panic when something flares up a little bit, not to worry, not to like go into that state of anxiety, but also not to get too, I'll bring it back to relationships for a second, excited when something we want comes in, because I've realized doesn't matter whether we're going really high or really low, right? Doesn't matter whether we're getting really fearful or really over the top, that's our nervous system still responding. So it's like, now I have this thing, it's almost like say, I win the lottery. Now I've won the lottery. I'm so excited. I'm now going to create such an energy, chaotic energy, that I can't hold it. I end up losing whatever source that was. And I just kind of noticed that pattern like in my relationships, which was a generational pattern, something that I noticed with people. Like, when you get into a relationship and you're super excited about this person and all this like love bombing and all that, and then you realize it's just going to burn out and it's going to go. So like it's just fascinating when you're saying like that and relating it to money and like you say the lottery winning and all that. Even if we're super excited about money, even if we're thinking that money is going to solve all our problems or it's really exciting and interesting, if we can't actually just be calm and accepting, yes, okay, be appreciative when money's coming on that. But if we're giving it all that energy, it's still externalizing, isn't it? It's still kind of creating a response in us that we can't maintain, because that's too much energy to even maintain in ourselves.
Yeah, 100%. And it's all that leads to a conversation really of detachment and understanding that if we look at, okay, so attachment styles, right? Even in the language, like we have this insecure attachment style, which means that we are attached.
Yes.
We're attached to things in our life. And most spiritual teachers and gurus through the years, like if we look at the goal, it is to live a life here on earth while being here in the 3D and like experiencing all of the things that we're going to experience here while simultaneously being really detached from it and saying, like, I know that I am a spirit living a human experience, not the other way around. And if you know that and you believe that to be true, it does become easier to become less attached to the things because it's realizing that if I am being called to go and do something, let's say that someone who's listening is, you've been called to start a business, or you've been called to get into a new relationship, or you've been called to do something that might be really scary. It's realizing that if your soul, okay, where's that calling coming from? All right, I mean, you don't have to call it a soul. You can call it God or love or your higher self or whatever you want to, address, like the universe, doesn't matter. But where's that calling coming from? To me, I believe it's coming from this higher power. Again, whether that's just your higher self, that's fine. I don't place judgment there. But if we're being called, then we have to realize that if the universe is going to bring you to it, the universe is going to bring you through it. Like you didn't show up here. I don't believe that we live in that type of, I believe we live in a benevolent universe. I don't believe that we live in a um what's like we live in this universe where when we are called to something, we're not just going to be left to fall flat on our face. Okay.
Yes, I think so too, that we're in this like, the universe is also detached, I think, kind of guiding us towards growth, towards
Yeah.
improvement, towards like more and more experience, but it's also detached from um how that necessarily looks. That's why we have this element of kind of co-creation and free will. So we can be given something, and if that's not helping us grow, it can be taken away. And if we're not enough if we're not enough in ourselves without it, if we can't find, like I say, that space of knowing that we are just having the experience and it's not ours, like the money's not ours, the possessions aren't ours, the people in the relationships, they're not ours, they're just an
Mhm.
experience that we're blessed, to experience, because I mean that's what makes life so precious, isn't it? It can go at any, we don't know how long it's going to be ours for, and that's like, I mean, easier said than done, isn't it? That's like a massive amount of growth. And I think the way that money is conditioned, or this idea of money in exchange, and that we need money in our society and all that, the value that we put on each other and things, and the transactions that money kind of creates for us, it can kind of really, like I say, take away, or even, I suppose, maybe not take away, mirror our relationship with life, like the bigger aspects of our soul and stuff. It can be such an insightful kind of way of evolving.
100%. And that's the whole journey of, healing your relationship with money. This is really why I started down this path because, I mean, first of all, this is my background, right? I've spent a long time, money has been a huge part of my life, but with that, it carried a huge importance. And because I wasn't healed within myself and I didn't realize my own value and worth, I would place value on how much money I had, and my safety became money. Whereas, again, the universe, because especially those of us who are spiritual and those of us who are being called to this more spiritual life, the universe was just not having that. Like, you're not going to have your worth attached to money. So there came a point where, like, not that it's not that everything was taken, but there were some financial hardships in there. Even after I was making, I had made six figures in a month, like when I was working, in the corporate world. So it's like, I made a shit ton of money and put a very high importance on it. And then the universe was like, okay, well, how about we just stop all of that? Let's take it away. And I quit my corporate job at the end of 2019, and then COVID happened. So it was like, well, yeah, figure out how you're going to make money now, and it was one of those periods of time that was like, when everything gets stripped away, who are you?
Yeah.
And my mentor says, like, when a orange gets squeezed, what comes out? It's orange juice. But when you get squeezed, what comes out? And so to me, that was my time of being squeezed and being vulnerable and being in this void of this. We talked about, like, because you were just on my podcast as well. But we talked about, like, how the butterfly goes into the cocoon, and that's really where I felt like I was. I was being fully squeezed, and I had to, like, look at, is my worth really attached to money? Is this really how I want to proceed and continue on? And when I let all of that go and just realized, yes, it's an experience, then of course the money starts to flow back in, and everything is the way that it needs to be and all is well in the world. But it is a journey. It is a journey, and there's nothing wrong. I just want to, I know we're landing the plane now, and I just kind of want to state that where you are right now with your financial situation is really just only a reflection of your dominant vibration around money to this point. And so that's all that it is. So if you want to change your relationship with money, the only thing that you really need to focus on is changing your dominant vibration around money so that in the future you can project something different and create a new experience. Sometimes that's not easy to do on our own, though, and that's why, I do the work that I do in the world, of course, to help people. But and you do the work in your world as well. Like, we're here to support, because I really don't think that this is a journey that, if I could go back, I would have ever tried to take alone. I think that mentors can be cheat codes. I think that mentors are here to help us, like, expedite our results and get there faster, and can really support us in making those pivotal decisions, and um, get us to where we actually want to be. But it's a co-creation. It takes us being ready to work on it, and then also, being in the container and receiving the support to get the help. And those are the things that really helped me to overcome even that dark night of the soul in 2020, and come back to where I am now. So it's just, and now I'm at a place where I have enough, passive or semi-passive income that I'm never going to have to work a real job again. I get to live a soul-powered life. I get to give back for a living, and that's because I followed my soul calling. But that doesn't make it easy. And there were a lot of times I questioned it along the way, that's for sure.
If you're not questioning, I think you're not making the right decisions anyway. Like if you're so sure about what you're doing, or you're really doing anything significant anyway, like
You're
that's
not risking enough.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. It's like no, you're not making bold moves here. It was
no
just
judgment,
true.
but it shouldn't feel that comfortable. And you know that. There's a part of you that knows that for sure. All of us know when we're allowing ourselves to be comfortable. And maybe this is your sign if you've been in that place right now. And I know it's a cycle, it's hibernation time. We're still in winter. Like there's that aspect of it too. But if you know in your heart of hearts that you're living a small life and you don't want to be, you
Yeah.
know, um, lean into that part and find the support that you need, or start looking at the resources that you need to be able to move out of that, because I think we're all designed to grow into the most magnificent versions of us. I don't think there's a single person on this planet that's meant to live a mediocre life, whatever that means for them. We're all meant to step into, and it's all going to look different for everyone
Yeah.
else. Everyone's going to look different, but we're all meant to move into living out our lives fully. And in this society that we live in, that does take money. So that's why I focus my time and attention here, because most people want to make more money, but it's always so much more than just the money, right? Like we experience such an incredible transformation um, in becoming the version of the person that can hold on to the money, that can call in the money. Like think about who you've become, right? Like just on this journey. And it's such a cool thing to be. So I love being connected with just other people who are doing this work, because I think it's so important in the world.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like amazing, like because there's only so much comfort that being comfortable can bring, right? That's what I found. Like I've really appreciated times, especially because I've quite a chaotic start to my life of comfort, right? And you're like, oh, this is so lovely to be like comfortable and safe and getting used to and allowing myself and allowing to be comfortable and safe. But then after a while that becomes stagnant, doesn't it? And
Yep.
it's like you
Yep.
you just you just know like actually now I need to do something a bit uncomfortable. Maybe that's just
Mhm.
how I am. Like actually now I need to do something a little bit more interesting. And then that
You've
becomes
normalized
comfortable.
that.
But yeah, that's like it's like the chat
Yeah,
you have, and it's like you then you grow and like, oh, it's a bit uncomfortable now. I've stepped into this, and then you grow into that, and we keep going. And
keep
it's just
going. Yep.
amazing how we can like use whatever catalyst it is that we desire, right? Whatever, I'm really come from this situation and now I want this thing. Now I want more money. Now I want more better health. Now I want a better relationship, whatever it is. We can always use that as a catalyst then for the next phase of our growth and our journey. So I think
100%.
this will be amazing for people who have like maybe it's like spent a lot of time at love school, or they're looking into their health or whatever it would be, or the relationships, and now they think, oh well, actually now I've got more energy, now I've got more vitality, or now I've got my relationship sorted. Let's make some money.
Yes. Yes.
Soul
100.
aligned money though, like money that feels good, right? Like money that feels that you want it, that you're not rejecting it, that it feels like it's part of your purpose, that it's part that you deserve it. All of this like other stuff that we uncovered, why we get into all these states anyway, that you don't deserve it when you're actually doing something that's aligned with your soul purpose, that feels good, then you maybe just want to actually keep the nice money
Yeah.
that comes.
Yeah, that's the whole goal. Yep.
Oh, thank you so much for your chat. Is there anything else you want to share with us about you, your work, your programs? I'm going to link all the amazing. Rebekah has a podcast. We have recorded an episode on that, but oh look, there's some amazing episodes on there. Actually, I've got like, I'm good. I've got like a little list of stuff that I want to. I'm like, oh, I'll have to dive in and listen to that one and listen to that one. But there's like a massive array of stuff on there on your podcast anyway. That's the Soul Powered podcast. That's right,
Hmm.
isn't it? And you've given us some great free resources, but you've got your container as well, haven't you? Do you want to tell us a bit about that if people want to really dive in and invest in their money
Yeah,
relationship?
sure. I would definitely start with just the podcast and kind of familiarizing yourself. my work in the world is different, right? It's unique. It serves a different type of person who wants to go against the grain. So I always say, just go and listen and see if the vibe is there, because I'm all about working with people who, want to work with me and vice versa. I think we're here to serve specific people, and I believe I come from abundance, which means like, hey, if you don't resonate with me, but you find someone else that is going to be helpful around your relationship with money, Terry being one of them, that I think I come from
Oh,
this place
no.
of, hey, we're all here to serve our specific people. So start with the podcast, see if the vibe is there. And then you can dive into my free resource of the it's called the Aligned Wealth Experience. And this is where we dive into the 5-step process, the Align method, and you can learn a little bit more about that and actually start to put this into practice, start recognizing some of your blocks, starting to release those, starting to understand the nervous system a bit more. So that training is in there, and it's a really deep dive, super, super, lots of really good reviews on that in and of itself. So like just dive in and see what you need support with. And then of course I am on Instagram. I'm on all of the socials as Rise with Rebekah. So if you want to DM me or you want to chat, I'm more than happy to do that as well. So just let me know how you need support. I love connecting with others, as you can see. So it's one of my favorite things to do. So don't be bashful. Reach out if you need some support, and I'm here to help.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise. I've really enjoyed it. And there's loads of stuff now
Yes,
wearing in.
good.
I'm excited to listen to your podcast and look at all your stuff. So thank you very much for your time. We'll see you again.
Awesome. Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Love Fools, where we have been exploring and embodying the universal language of love. Love Fools is brought to you as part of Love School, where we explore what it means to love self, others, and everything. For more information, come and have a look at our site, www.loveschool.uk.